Good
Hello, good morning,
morning,
everyone.
Anna.
Hi, Nurse A.
Hi, Nurse Anna. How are you today?
I'm cold.
Oh my God, I know it's freezing outside already. Last night I was outside and I was just wearing jacket. I'm like, wait, I did not prepare well for this. I feel like it's still summer or not there yet, but here we
In
are.
our mind, it's still summer, but in our body said otherwise.
Yeah, winter. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. We're in the northeast coast, so winter is here.
Yes, Kay's coming from Maryland when I'm coming from New York. And while we're waiting for Dr. Nurse Paul from Houston, it's warm there.
I know it's year round, right? Year round
It is.
warm. Yeah, that's
It is.
that's that's one thing that I like on those states. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to worry about putting on your large jacket or thick jacket and just go out and
Yeah.
in the same clothes like in the Philippines.
Bring your glove, your scarf, and your bonnet.
Say, where is everyone coming from? How's the weather where
Yeah.
you are? Is it winter also? It's interesting because in South America, my husband's family is actually the opposite. There, when it's winter, here is summer. There, I'm like, wait a minute,
Oh,
what?
good, good.
I thought it was like, oh, I thought we are all everybody's going on to the same season. Just few weeks after. It's now we're
Mm-hmm.
totally different here. Totally opposite. It's winter there in the US. It's summer here.
Summer here. At least we have a chance to go in there anytime soon if you
Yeah.
want to experience summer while it's winter here. Well, we have
It's
people from Saudi Arabia and
yeah.
Philippines. Good evening there. Thank you for wasting your Saturday evening or morning with us, with Nurse A, and later on, Nurse O will join us. For the meantime, what are we going to talk about Nurse A today? Another hot topic.
Yes, it's going to be direct versus not direct.
And Dr. Nurse O is
Good
here. Good
morning.
morning, Dr. Nurse O. We were just talking about the weather today.
Right. Well, it's still warm and humid here in Texas. Good morning, Kay. Good morning, Anna.
Good
Hello,
good
hi.
morning. We're jealous about the warm.
Yes.
Right. It's about 80 degrees here in the morning, 60, 50, 60 in the evening. Yep.
Yeah, I just want to go out yesterday. I'm like, wait a minute, it's kind of cold. Very cold. This is one thing about America or wherever you
Right.
are. And I'm pretty sure not only here but other countries you are experiencing your winter as well.
Right. How about our audience? Guys, we have 100 viewers 4 minutes into the show.
That
Can you
is
guys
so
share
fast.
share to us where you guys are coming from and what countries are represented today? We have Romeo. Hi, Mr. Romeo is joining us from Florida and it's 60 degrees there right now. We have Antoinette from Saudi Arabia. If you guys can please share the show for us. Thank you so much.
Oh wait, I'm not advertising anything here.
They're not our
But thank
paid sponsor, okay?
sorry, but thank you for the cup sent for sending me this cup. Thank you. Whoever
Keep
Right.
that
you
company
warm.
is, I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. Nice and warm.
Yes.
Yeah, very nice and warm. It actually, I think I overheated it. Now it's burning my tongue.
Right.
Right.
Guys,
So,
preparing our today's topic. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this for a long time. I
Right.
received a
Right.
lot of messages.
yeah.
The night before, it always happens the night before our talk. A lot of people sending me messages. I was telling them, reserve your question for tomorrow. Stay tuned because we will talk about it with Nurse All and Dr. Nurse All and Kay. Keep sharing.
Right. Yes. And guys, please also tag your friends. This is a very important topic. We always get this question as admins of one of the biggest Facebook groups for international immigrant nurses in the US. It's Lefora. We always get this question: what's staffing? What's direct placement agencies? Now, inherently, they're not evil. There's no good, bad. Both are good for to take you to the US. But today we're gonna dissect what it means to be a direct staff nurse and staffing agency nurse.
Yes, so we can start, and I'm going to start it
Yep.
right now.
Right.
So this is the very confusing part. A lot of people say, "Okay, is it direct hire?" Okay, again, the word direct hire doesn't doesn't really tell if you're a staffing or you are directly direct from the hospital. So when you say direct hire, you can be both. Okay, direct hire is you can be directly hired by the staffing agency, which means your employer is your staffing agency, and that staffing agency is actually the one who's sponsoring you from wherever you are. Now, when you say direct hire, by the employer itself, the hospital where you are working, then that can also be a direct hire. So direct hire is not an indication. Again, the word direct hire is not indication of a specific employment status. But when you say direct placement versus staffing, that makes a big difference. Okay, so again, direct hire and direct placement are two different things. So the only two things that I want you to remember right now is direct placement and staffing. So when you say direct placement, means let's say there's Anna, there's Paul, and then me. Let's say Paul is the hospital or the facility where you will be working. Paul is the DON in that facility, but Anna is the middleman. So we have to identify who Anna is. Is Anna a direct placement? Does he only do recruitment and then he will send you guys to Paul? Or is Anna the one who is actually the staffing company? Or is Anna the one who's going to be sending you paycheck? Okay, so when you say direct placement is, it means that Paul is your boss. Paul is going to give you your benefits. Paul is going to give you your salary, your paycheck, your pay stubs. Okay, and your contract is signed by Paul because he is where you're going to be working. Now, when you're talking about staffing, it's going to be different because Anna is the staffing company and her contract will be under Anna. The paycheck will be from Anna and the benefits will be from Anna. So every time you're confronted with somebody who's asking, who's selling you a job, the first thing you will ask is, who is my employer? Okay. So if Anna is presenting to you and Anna says, I am your employer, I am directly hiring you, which means Anna is the middleman. Anna is the staffing company. Okay. But if Anna says, Paul is your employer, then you ask Anna, so what is your role? And Anna will say, I'm just a direct placement company and I will put you to Paul's facility. Paul will be where you will be working. Okay. So you have to identify that too. You always have to ask, who is my employer? Who will send me paycheck and who will give me benefits? So that is the main question there. Now, there's a lot of people saying, hey, I inquired about direct placement, and this direct placement company gave me to a staffing company, referred me to a staffing company when I arrived in the US. So a lot of things are happening right now. We're in, again, Anna is the middleman. Paul is the actual facility where we'll be working or the actual employer. So there are things that right now is happening is Anna is being the direct placement, and Anna is giving to the cousin of Anna, which is the staffing company, right? And then the staffing company cousin will be supplying you to the US. Okay, so again, the whenever you're confronted with those kind of situation, you ask again that person you're talking to, who is my employer, who is giving me paycheck, and who's giving me benefits. And that's how you will understand if your employment terms are direct to that actual facility or owner of that facility or versus staffing. There's a thing here in the United States where a lot of hospital is owned by healthcare system. So technically healthcare system is like Anna in the middle too, right? But the difference of the employer being a healthcare system is when you go to that actual facility and you will meet a nurse who's actually working there too. So both of you will have the same benefits. You're both employee of that healthcare facility or healthcare system. But if you're a staffing company, when you see a nurse beside you working side by side, and you realize that, oh, this nurse is getting paid night shift differential, holiday differential. If you're coming from a staffing company, don't expect to have the same benefits like that. You might not be getting night shift differential. You might not be getting holiday differential because you are not the employee of that facility. Okay, so that makes a big difference. So a lot of people have come to me and say, okay, it's unfair. I'm not getting paid differential. I'm not getting paid. I only have like you know few 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 vacation, but my coworker here have longer vacation. They have PTOs that are more than me, and they have night shift differential. I don't get those. And I said to them, unfortunately, you signed with a staffing company, so your benefits is not the same as the people or the nurse next to you in work. Okay, so that's the difference. Again, erase the word direct hire from your. I'm sorry. Yeah, erase the word direct hire. You're only coming with two words there: direct placement or staffing. So, because direct hire is the real meaning of direct hire is there's no middleman. Anna doesn't exist. Okay, the real picture here is again, is it the nurse? Is it Anna in the middleman? Or is it Paul, the actual facility where I'm going to be working? If it's direct hire, majority of the time is there's no Anna at all. There's no other staffing company except Paul who's doing the recruitment. And Paul is the one who's going to get you and sponsor you and process all your onboarding. Um, you know, so you have to be very careful about when you say direct hire because like in Philippines, direct hire it cannot be directly hired because Philippines has laws on using recruitment companies that are Philippine accredited. But if you are coming from other countries, I believe there's no law on that. But again, in the Philippines, it's going to be tricky when you're just talking online with a recruiter when with a company and you didn't go through any Philippine accredited agency. Okay, so you might get in trouble for that. Just be careful. Those rules and laws are there to protect. So please be careful when you are actually being sold direct hire. Okay, make sure that if it's really direct hire, there's no middleman at all. The person you're talking to will have an email domain that is actually from that hospital or that company, like the facility itself. Like example, I'm gonna apply in Johns Hopkins. No, so the only person that I'm talking to will have an email that will have blank, recruiter at Johns Hopkins, like that, or .com or edu, or org. So don't you will not see a recruiter from that direct hire facility saying at gmail.com. Okay, you will not see that. If you're talking directly to the facility, they should be using their business email, not their personal at gmail, at hotmail, or talk to me in WhatsApp, or talk to me in Facebook. Okay, so
Right.
usually those direct hire have an email domain that is directly from that hospital company. Okay.
Right. And I'd like to highlight this comment from one of our friends in our network, an immigrant lawyer, attorney Majen Kellem. Hi, attorney Kellem. I think she's
Ah,
watching in LinkedIn in K's LinkedIn. But
yeah,
can we flash this on the screen, please, to our moderator? Um,
yeah.
Majen said they can use tricky words. It
Hmm.
can be a direct placement with the staffing company. The nurse will be a direct employee of the agency. It's not what the nurses believe what will happen, but the companies can use it as a defense. Direct placement is not a legal term. That is correct. So the way
Yeah,
I tell my nurses and everyone watching our show today, this is your key takeaway. For you to figure out who's your employer, check your job offer. So there's two documents that
mhm,
will be presented to you: the job offer and whatever contract they want to put you in. Because if you're working with
yeah,
different companies, such as the recruiter or the placement agency and the hospital or whatever facility, so that entails two documents from the hospital agency, from the recruiter.
mm,
The job offer
yeah,
will actually tell you who is paying you. So the
yeah,
direct placement becomes a moot term if the agency is your actual employer,
yeah,
because they can just say, yeah, you're directly placed, but
mhm,
I'm your employer. So that's not
yeah,
directly placed, guys. You still go through third party, because there,
yeah,
there's you guys have to understand that there's different staffing models here in the US. They
mhm,
can hire you directly with their human resources team, or they can solicit a
mhm,
third party recruitment agency. So there are national recruitment agencies here. The same is true with international nurses,
yeah,
or they can just pay staffing agencies, and staffing agencies pay their
mm,
nurses, and the nurses are employed with staffing agencies. So those are three different models of employing nurses here in the US, and the same is true with what they're doing with the international nurses. Now, because of all the information sessions and advocacy talks that we're doing, posting, we say go for direct placement if you can. We're not advertising direct placement themselves, because staffing agencies are not inherently evil. Let's take that connotation off,
mm,
because staffing agencies or direct placement recruitment agencies can also do that. Um, but because of that, people like to game the system by, oh, they're looking for the word direct placement, so let me put that in and say I'm
mhm,
a direct placement recruiter, but I'm actually your employer. So that's just gaming the system. And I know nurses are smart enough to figure this out,
mhm,
if only, like what we said in episode 4, I think, if you read your contract well. All right. So we always say here in the States, this is a common
yeah,
term here: read the fine print. It is
Mm-hmm.
in
yeah,
this text that they can technically, go against you. And we talked about that in one episode, and honestly say, you know what, you signed it. So there's no way out for you anymore. I've been
yeah,
receiving messages again from nurses that have not even been here in the US, and they're already being slapped with a $40,000 bill, because they're technically breaching already. And the only thing that the hospital or the agency did was to file the I-140. There's not even an documentary qualified information from NVC. It has not proceeded to interview. The nurse was not even interviewed. They're still stuck in the retrogression, and they want to get out of the contract. And the
yeah,
agency says, you know what, we're going to bill you $40,000, instead of just paying the amount that they paid for the lawyer and filing the fees, which is not 40,000. It's probably close to 2,000, 3,000, or five
Yeah.
thousand dollars, something like that. So very tricky, guys. That's why we're
very
doing this
tricky. Yeah.
show.
So,
That's why
but
we're
I'm
doing
gonna
this
give
show.
you one question only. So when
Mhm.
you are
Clickbait.
confronted with somebody talking you, selling you job, number one question that you will always ask. This is what you're gonna ask. When I work in that facility, am I working? I'm gonna be working with everybody else there, like the nurses. Do I have the same benefits
Mm-hmm.
like the people who will go there?
Right.
Will I be getting the same paycheck like everybody there? I mean, sorry, will be getting the same benefits like everyone working in there? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay, so are the nurses who's working there will have the same benefits like me, or or are is the employer of those nurses who are working there is the same employer like me? So that is a question there that you will have to know. If the answer is yes, then you are directly hired by where you are working. Okay, but
Right.
if the answer is no, most likely you are in the staffing company. Okay,
Right, bro.
unless there's no nurse who's permanently staffed in that facility and everybody's an agency nurse, a staffing company agency. Okay, when you say agency nurse or vendor nurse or a staffing agency nurse, then you are from a staffing company. Okay.
Right, right, right.
All
And
right.
I think let's move on to the next topic, and we'll take care of the questions in a bit. I'm going to talk about the direct hire or direct placement. To correct the term from Kay, and I love that suggestion. I think we need to standardize. I guess we guys, us three, are going to be the disruptors. We're gonna standardize the term for
Right.
everybody. We need to define the terms properly, because if you don't
Mm-hmm.
define that properly, everybody's just going to use the term loosely. But
Mm-hmm.
we have to define that. And this show is defining that as we speak. So we're going to talk about direct placement. For direct placement, I'll talk about advantages versus disadvantages. Short story about myself. I came through the US to the US through a recruitment firm or recruitment company, but luckily I was hired as a directly placed nurse, which means my employer is the hospital. And how do I know that? I've already known that since I signed the contract with my recruiter. The contract with the recruiter is just to protect the recruiter, but my job offer came from the hospital. And like I said in my story in the past, the hospital abandoned me, and then my recruiter has to find another hospital in the same city, and same thing happened. My 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 employer is the hospital. All the paperwork that I signed for the job offer, for the interview letter that has the job offer dated, and when I get to the US, I reported to the human resources of of my hospital. I signed all the paperwork that has their letterheads, and when the paycheck started coming in, I got their name on the paycheck. When my benefits started coming in on the 90th day, I think, I have all the benefits coming from the hospital. So direct placement, um, recruitment, the way they do it, like I said, there's two different models for direct placement that they do mainly for international nurses. One is they can either directly hire you. You can do that by going to American websites like Indeed or Glassdoor or LinkedIn, and there are jobs in the US. You can talk to the recruiter, ask them if they can directly work with you to petition you from which country you are from to the US, and they might have some immigrant lawyers in their networks who can do that for them. So with directly hired nurses, the hospital work with you directly, like Kay said, no middleman, and they're gonna work with you. They're gonna get their own lawyer for you. That's direct hire. Direct placement is they're gonna hire or pay a recruitment firm, a recruitment company, a recruitment agencies, and this is the most common model that we see outside the US. And the recruitment agency's role is to find a nurse that's suitable for the job description, for the level of experience they're looking for, and for the type of work that they're looking for. So that's the recruitment agency's responsibility. So with me, the model that I had when I went here is a direct placement, which means I went through a recruiter and the recruiter submitted my name to the hospital. Okay. So the advantages when you are directly placed, which is the most common, and quite frankly, what I advocate, because you directly work with a hospital, in the sense that your employer is a hospital, is number one, your pay. Your salary will come from the hospital, not through your recruiter. The recruiter is not going to give you money. The recruiter is just going to make you sign documents, coordinate with you about your immigration process, about your requirements like NCLEX or IELTS or English exam. But the pay, when you get here, the salary, the check will come from your hospital, right? So that means there are no deductibles, or I'm sorry, deductions from agency. So, for example, if you are contracted to get paid $45 an hour, that $45 an hour goes straight to your bank. And that's only the base pay. When you're here in the States, I used to work in the ER as an ER nurse. So I get my preceptor pay, I get my differentials, I get my bonuses when I pick up extras. All of these money goes straight to my bank. It does not go to the agency. The problem with staffing agency is the hospital can offer you an extra, say, I'm going to offer you an extra $30 an hour if you pick up this extra shift. All right. Let me tell you this, your agency, if you're in a staffing agency model, may or may not give that to you because they get your money, not you. All right. Unless your staffing agency authorized you to get that amount of money, you may not get it. All right. Depending on their policy. So that's a good thing with direct hire because I'm directly transacting or direct placement. I'm directly transacting with a hospital. One time they offered me a $200 bonus to come on Christmas Day. Plus, that was my overtime already. So that's also time and a half. Plus, I also get charged nurse differential and so many other differentials. So, in short, I made good money that day for coming in on Christmas Day. And since I don't have family in the States, I took it. But because I'm directly placed and my employer is the hospital, I got all that money in the hospital. I don't have to go through my recruiter or my staffing agency to say, hey, can I get this money? Will I tell them yes, and you're gonna give me that money on my paycheck? No, I don't have to verify that because I just verify it directly with my director and the human resources. All right, so that's one. So pay. There is no deduction. The hospital pays you. Now, how do recruiters make money? If they're not getting a pay cut of your check, if they're not getting any money hourly from your check, how are they getting paid in terms of international nursing recruitment? They get paid when you get here, all right? They get a lump sum bonus. Kind of like think about your sign-on bonus. When you're here in the States, they offer you $20,000 sign-on bonus, $30,000 sign-on bonus if you move to this hospital, plus relocation fees. So those bonuses they give to recruiters. That's how they make money. And I mean, honestly, that sounds like a fair game to me because they worked hard and waited for you for years. They were not getting paid to pay for their staff members and their lawyers. They were putting the money out first until you get here, and then they get paid by the hospital or whatever model they have. But they get paid by the hospital for recruiting you. But that doesn't come out from your paycheck because the hospitals, technically, before you get here, must still abide by the rule where their rates must be competitive to where what they're offering local nurses at this level of experience, that's what they should offer the immigrant nurses too. They could not offer you a much lower rate or lower than market value. And the consul during your interview for immigrant visa will verify this information. And if they see that the agency or the hospital or your recruiter is not paying you adequately, they're gonna deny your visa. All right. So that's it. They're very strict with that. It's called the FLAC data, if you can look it up in Google. But that's it. So they pay your recruiters, but they don't deduct it from your paycheck. All right, that's the sign-on bonus budget. They're giving it to the recruiters. So that's one. You directly get your pay from your employers or the hospital. Number two, the benefits, like what Kay mentioned earlier, your benefits come from your employer. Your 401k, which is sometimes with bigger hospitals, it would mean bigger bargaining ability, right? Because they have more employees. So that means your 401k might be bigger. 401k is retirement funds, people. And your medical insurance might be cheaper because there's more staff members. Of course, more staff members, cheaper insurance. Your PTOs, paid time offs, might be on a higher amount. Like, for example, when I was hired direct hire because or directly placed because I work with a hospital directly. The I'm sorry. I think I'm hearing a little click. I don't know what it is, but the AirPod is like super loud right now. Um, the what am I saying? Oh, the PTO that I get is about 6.5 hours every paycheck. So all in all, in a month, I'm in a year, that's like a full month of PTOs. PTOs is our leave. paid leave, guys, here in the US. But with my counterparts who did the agency, they are only given 2 weeks, or probably 3 weeks in a year. So that's like a lot of difference, right? You get 2 weeks paid leave in the staffing agency. In my example only, this is a personal anecdote. Agencies, again, staffing agencies are not inherently evil. They can match what direct employees are getting as well. Or with me, I was getting 4 weeks. So of course, for me, the choice was easy. I'm gonna go to where whoever gives me the benefits better. And the bigger the hospital, the bigger the organization, and you can look it up in Google when you're being hired by a hospital. Check how big their organization is. The more benefits that you get, and with being a direct employee of the hospital and through a direct placement from an agency, you get all these benefits. The last one is, I like this part, you get to work with the human resources directly from the hospital. So the human resources of the hospital is the one, responsible for the employees, right? So whenever there's an issue, like let's say for example, bullying in the workplace, workplace assault, unsafe environment, staffing issues, problem with your coworkers, problem with your director, guys, you can talk directly to the human resources if you have to, or you can also verify your benefits there, your pay, ask for bigger pay, negotiate your contract. You get to work directly with the human resources of the hospital. You don't have to go through a third party, which is another agency, to talk to that agency's human resources, which could be out of state, which could be in a state that's like 2,000 miles away from you, which could be in a different time zone. The human resources in the hospital would be there where you're working at, so you can talk to them directly. So these are just the some of the advantages, but there are also disadvantages. First one is abandonment, and this is a big thing. When you go direct hire, the risk, of course, there's always risk like investment, is if the hospital eventually changes mind and abandon you, which says, you know what, I don't want to hire this nurse anymore because we've filled up the spots, we don't have spots open anymore, and we don't need this nurse anymore. We're gonna move on. So when they abandon you, they're not gonna ask you to pay for what they already paid. It's considered lost fees for them already. But they can abandon you, which means now you're gonna have to look for another employer. Now you're gonna have to talk to a recruitment agency again or another company to look for an employer that will recapture your petition, because you could not go to the US without a job offer that you can present to the interview, to the consul, that's dated within 1 month. So if the job offer you're holding says it's been 3 years ago, the consul at the time of interview, before they give out your visa, will deny your visa. It has to be within 30 days, which means there should still be an intent from the hospital or facility that you're going to, that they still need you and that spot is reserved for you. So if the hospital abandons you, obviously you have to go through the process again of looking for an employer, accepting job offer, recapturing your visa, finding a lawyer, and go back to start again. Not totally start because you're recapturing your visa, but you know what I mean. Like for me, when I was abandoned by my first employer, my recruitment agency was um, gracious enough to find another direct placement employer, which is in the same city. But it took me 1 year to process everything again, because they have to interview me again. I have to do battery tests, which means like nursing exams, 3 different battery tests. I have to go through another interview, and then we have to wait for the recapturing process to be done. So that's one serious thing. I've encountered one nurse just last month, I think, or in the last few weeks, that um, um, they were about to go to the US. They already have visa on hand. Don't know if UK and Anna have heard this. I think it's in Lefora. They already have visa on hand, and then they got the email, I think days before they leave for the US, that the hospital said we're rescinding the offer or something like that. Like, okay, we don't have a hospital for you anymore. The spot has been taken. There's no empty spot for you anymore. All right, we're not pursuing the offer. So in short, the nurse is left with no employer. They're gonna come to the U.S. without employer, or sometimes you've already cleared your medicals, you've already cleared everything, and all you need to do is get an offer letter that's dated 30 days for the consul to prove that you still have an employer in the US before your interview date. This comes towards the last part of immigration process, guys. And then the hospital decides, you know what, we don't want to give you the job offer, we're not pursuing anymore. So imagine being so close to getting a visa, and then the employer, hospital, changing their mind last minute and say, we're going to abandon you. So that's one serious thing that you guys need to consider when doing direct hire, and it is a known thing. A lot of nurses have to go through that. All right, so that's one of the major disadvantages that I want you guys to know. Yes, it's better in terms of benefits, but there's also a risk. All right. Then number two, you're technically transacting with two entities, like I mentioned earlier. First is the hospital or facility or organization that's employing you, say senior nursing facility or a hospital or whatever it is, right? Rehab facility and all that. So that's one. The other one is your recruiter, which is another company. Guys, if you breach the contract, two entities can pursue you. Two entities can sue you, can bully you, can manipulate you, or honestly, they have the right to sue if you did not fulfill your contract. If you suddenly one day you were gone and they could not find you, there can be two agencies that can ask you for fees. There can be two agencies that can, or employment or employer, I'm sorry, and organizations that can ask you for breach, damage, whatever you call it. All right, or damages. But that's the thing. That's one serious thing you guys need to consider as well. And the last one is when you're going through direct placement, direct hire, and it's mostly virtual at this point, they are recruiting you from US. All right. So which means they are protected by the US laws, but you are not, because you're not yet here and you're being employed from outside the US. If the employment is not happening in your own country, there might not be a protection from your own country towards you, which means you're transacting directly to an agency in another country. And if this agency did something to you, ask you for money, bully you, sue you, guys, you might not be protected if you're not, if you're just directly messaging them virtually. All right. I know countries like us in the Philippines, there is an agency called what do we call it now? Okay, DMV, I think, right? Department of um motor vehicle.
No, Office of Migrant Worker, DMV.
DMW. I'm sorry.
Oh my
I'm
God,
sorry.
DMV,
I'm
Paul.
just kidding.
Is this
DMW.
this is a Texas way. You just call everybody
Right.
DMV.
Right. It's DMW, Department of Migrant Workers. So they have a law that, and this is a government law, that all agencies or recruitment firms or hospitals employing nurses must go through them. They verify your contracts that you're getting into to check if there's actually a job in that country before they can start recruiting. And they should have an accreditation, in short, before they can start recruiting nurses from the Philippines. In a way, that's a safety net for nurses in the Philippines, for example, to say, you know what, this has been approved by my government. So if there's anything that would be a problem, I can report it to the government. I don't know how powerful DMW is. I hope they are. But we have our own issues in our own country. But that's just one example. Some other countries might have that as well. If you're directly being recruited by an agency that's talking to you virtually, emailing you, calling you from the US, well, guess what, guys? They're circumventing that rule away from your country. So, which means you don't have a safety net, and it is up to you to take in that risk. All right. So, like I said, direct hire are good, but there are also disadvantages that we need to put out. So, those are the three things that I want you guys to remember: risk for abandonment. Hold on, let me put up my notes because I love Anna, so I learned to put more notes about the show. Risk for
No.
doubling the fees to the recruiter and to the hospital if there's a case of breach, and risk for no protection from your own country if you're doing it virtually. All right. And I think there was a comment, Anna, right? Or Kay? What is that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Carlene said an agency does not provide benefits as the hospital or nursing home do. Hence, direct hire status should not be granted to any staffing agency. I definitely agree with you, Carlene. Thank you for pointing that out. That direct hire is not really applicable to staffing agencies. It's something or so, it is used to actually confuse a lot of applicants coming to the United States
Right.
because a lot of applicants they feel like they're going to be an employee
Direct
of that
hire.
actual facility, yeah, but then they're using this direct hire word just to confuse the nurses. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're a direct hire to us, we're saying we're
But
direct hire, but you're actually direct hire of the
But
middleman.
yeah, they're
You
like,
know,
oh, we're directly hiring you, but yeah, we're
yeah,
your employer, not the
exactly.
hospital.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
I'm
still
telling
staffing
you,
agency.
correct. And there can be like three middlemen,
mm-hmm.
but again, if you ask that question, like I said, do you know, like Paul, direct, who's the direct employer is the actual facility.
Right.
That's why you ask them. I want to add something with what Paul said earlier about the risk. I totally agree with Paul. When you go with small direct placement, there can be risks that when you arrive here, there's no job for you. So I'd like you to make sure when you look at those contract, the contract of most of the direct placement recruiters should be ending when you arrive here in the United States. So that should terminate. So when you arrive in the US, the contract that will only be existing should be only from that facility or your direct employer or your petitioner.
Right.
There should be no more saying about the recruiter saying that you still have 3 years for it, with us. No. So a direct placement should end the contract when you arrive in the US, because now upon arrival to the US your contract should only be from between you and your employer, your hospital. Now some recruiters are slipping in secondary contract. I call this dual layer. So what is dual layer contracts means? When I arrive in the United States and 2 years after, 3 years after, my recruiter from, when I signed from the Philippines, that contract is still active on top of my employer. So if I quit this job today, or let's say I get disabled today and cannot work, my hospital says, hey, Kay, we're going to let you go because we understand that you cannot do this job anymore. You're medically unable to fulfill your obligation. And based from our contract in the hospital, you don't have to owe us anything because this is a medical condition and you are free to go, right? Because you're disabled. Now, if you signed a dual layer, you're not done because you have still legal obligation with that recruiter. So that is called dual layer. And majority of non-healthcare professionals who's running this kind of business, they really don't follow code of ethics. So I really want you to warn to look at your contract. Make sure you only have one contract if you are a direct placement. Okay. Yeah, so that's my ad. Now we're gonna go to Anna.
Hi, I am your finale. So nice information as always, the corner on play. So I will be talking about staffing agency. A little background about myself. So I was abandoned twice. The first two staffing agencies that I worked with, they abandoned me. And the third one, foreign recruitment agency. It's a recruitment. It's not a staffing agency. Hired me and said, "Hey Anna, we are not your employer. We have a lot of staffing agency and they need nurses." So at first I was confused. I was like, "Who is really my employee?" So I am the recruitment agency and staffing agency. So, like all said, it's a whole new role in terms of direct hire versus staffing agency. So what happened with me was, after the recruitment agency, I have also a contract with them saying, we are your recruiter, we're gonna look at staffing agency, will give you a job as a nurse in the US. This is our contract. This is our terms. So I sign it. Finally, like two staffing agency. The other one didn't work out. The other one worked out here in New York. But my original NCLEX licensure is from California. So a staffing agency coming from here in New York offered me a job and gave me offer a job in a nursing home. So remember, nurses, last week we spoke about contract and job offer. The staffing agency gave me a job offer. I read it, I like it. And then when it said okay, I agree with it, they offered me the contract. I made sure on that contract it stated that they are my employee, not the nursing home that they will bring me into. So what are the benefits of to work in a staffing agency? Okay, so Paul, I'm trying to learn how to use the iPhone and to go away with my notebook. So the advantages of working or being hired by a staffing agency is first, you have a great job placement. Like because staffing agency have a lot of facility in terms of hospital, they have rehab, they have nursing home. We never run out of any client or facility. So whatever your experience is, you can choose and eat or you can negotiate. And they have a steady employment, like what I said, because they have a lot of facilities. They can put you whatever you want to work in a hospital. But with me, I want to start it slow and steady. So I chose to be placed in a nursing home for the babies, exactly nursing home in New York. And the staffing agency uh, have an interview with me with the nursing home. So I really know what I'm getting myself into. There were no surprises. So I have an interview with the director of the pediatric nursing home. I know their expectations. They know my expectations. And the staffing agency, they pick me up in the airport. I have orientation in their office, and they toured me around. They help me with my housing and relocation. That's another advantage. And their support and orientation in the in the community is awesome. They help me set up my bank account. And when I arrive, I already have my social security and my green card. And they also finance my family visa before and help me with the immigrant ease. And they pay for my airfare. Go for you're gonna work with English staffing agency. And then they offer employment or green card as sponsorship with me and with my family. However, there are also disadvantages working in a staffing agency. Now, nurses, remember, your boss, your employee, or your employer, the one who's giving you the paycheck, is the staffing agency, not the facility that you are working with. So even though I also had an orientation in the facility, still whatever problems I have, whatever issue I have, I go to my staffing agency. Someone bullied me at work. I go to my staffing agency, not to the HR of that facility. So of course, if you work under a staffing agency or you're being hired, you have contracts. I mean, you have to fulfill that law binding contract that you signed and was notarized because you agree with it. If the contract is 3 years, whatever terms, provision in that contract, you agree with it, so you have to fulfill it. And like Paul said, when you are direct hire, you have better benefits. I agree with that. My pay, I discovered after I finished my contract was $40 per hour if you were direct hire. But because I was under recruitment agency and then staffing agency, my pay was only $30. So those two people, those two companies got $5 per hour that I'm working. And my PPO or my vacation leave is not enough, only 2 weeks for a year. And my benefits, the health insurance, not also good, it's more expensive. and very limited, very in terms of benefits, in terms of bonuses. So like Paul said, when you work in a holiday, you get paid more. In every hour that I work under a staffing agency, they always have a cut. You know, it said, I was trained to be a charge nurse, the later on a supervisor. The staffing agency only gave me $1 for it in every hour that I work as a charge nurse and a supervisor. And I said, no, it's not gonna work for me. It's very unfair. They're getting the pay $9 and I'm only getting $1 while I'm working, those hours. And also another disadvantage of working under staffing agency is as a nurse, we have a limited control because you have a contract to fulfill. Now, I saw in one comment, in one question, if you are working under staffing agency, are you allowed to work in another facility? In the contract, it's in there. Personally, in my contract, it's stated during this contract, you are not allowed to work in other facility. So it's a yes and a no, but I spoke to them like, listen, I only work 3 days or 3 nights in a week, and I'm only working. My husband before was not an RN yet, and I need to work in another place. So I'm an OR nurse really by profession from the Philippines, and I communicated to my staffing agency after half a year. They let me work for other facility while fulfilling my contract with them. So nurses, remember last week we discussed contract. I think today's topic and last week's topic is connected because you want to make sure what you're getting yourself into starting from that contract that you're about to sign. Make sure who is your employer. Is it a staffing? Are you a direct hire? Are you are being hired by a recruiting company like I was? So you will understand what you're putting yourself and your family into when you arrive in the US. Because once you're here, it will either make you or break you. So what are the other disadvantages? Like what I said, staffing agencies have a lot of client or facility. So there might be changes in the relocation. Because we're gonna work with them. What if, hey, I wanna work here in New York. No, we have no client there, Anna. So we're gonna bring you in Alabama or we're gonna bring you here. So make sure that you're gonna know what you're getting yourself into by reading those contracts, by understanding if you're gonna work under staffing or direct hire. But other than that, those are the advantages and disadvantages of being hired by a staffing agency. Like we always advocate here, educate yourself and whatever will work for your goals in life or your family. I mean, staffing agency it's like direct hire. There's good and bad in it. It's a blessing in the curse if you're really with the correct staffing agency. My staffing agency was not perfect, but I will always be grateful with them because of them I was able to come here, fulfill my American dreams with my family. And I was able to finish my contract in a span of 1.5 years because remember, those contract is stated you are going to work for 3 years in X amount of hours, and I work more than hours. So later on, they let me go, and I said, if you're gonna keep me working, it means I'm gonna be overworked for hours. So it means a break. So they were like, okay, just can you treat me as a per diem until you finish the 3 years? And how about you, Client Paul? Any addition for what I missed about staffing agency?
Yes, I'd like to mention something. So when Anna mentioned about when you are under staffing company, you arrive here, they took care of you, they help
Mm-hmm.
you with your social security, bank, they are, they give you housing, they give you travel assistance like booking your airfare, took you to the hospital on their first day. So this is not part of the recruitment service anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that is called concierge service.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because under the staffing umbrella, the staffing industry, one portion of it really is the the recruitment process. There is onboarding process. There is also some concierge service. So when you are working with any of these companies who will give you those services, again, booking your airfare, booking your hotel, picking up from the hotel to the airport to the hotel, and then driving you around the area, giving you food, stacking up your fridge, giving
Yeah.
you
New beds,
uh,
new blankets.
right? So those are called now concierge service. This is not part of the recruitment process anymore, and it's called concierge service. So
Mm-hmm.
any staffing company can offer that. Any direct placement company can also offer that. It's just that majority of the time that staffing companies are used to do this because like in an agency. I've been with an agency for 18 years working. 16 years as a traveling nurse. So my agency, my staffing agency can provide that. Okay, because they're used to those kind of things. They set up the hotel, set up the airfare. So those concierge services are actually normal to them. However, if you are working with hospital HR, these HR people, they don't do that as much as a staffing company do. So sometimes when you work with direct placement, um, they don't offer that sometimes. Okay, so that's one thing that you will have to ask when you go for direct placement. Do you offer concierge services like those pick up in the
Right.
hotel? Yeah, because there's a lot of nurses who complains that their replacement company sucks. And I said
Right.
to them, well, did you sign with a direct placement company with
Or
Mm-hmm.
concierge service or
mm-hmm.
not? Well, I don't think they said that. Well, I look at the documents and I said to them, your documents, your contract did not say anything about concierge service. So other
That's extra.
people,
Yep.
yep, that is extra. Other people who arrive in the United States are under staffing company, and it clearly stated in their contract that they will provide that service.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you pick up those companies or whichever you want to choose, staffing or direct placement, and you are a person who does not know how to navigate those things, that's where concierge service is going to be very helpful. So I recommend
Correct.
those for that. So it's like
Right.
setting your expectations. Don't
Yep.
expect to get a Lamborghini when you actually just said I want a Toyota car. you
Right.
know
Right.
I paid for a Toyota car. Why am I not getting Lamborghini? Well, your
I paid for
expectations are
egg
wrong.
hub.
Right?
Right. Right. I think I agree with Kay about setting the expectations
Yep.
because that's very important. That's why we're doing this show so you guys can start writing notes of what you're gonna look for and what you will negotiate with your agencies. And some of them provides like car service. I got a car service for 30 days, house for I think 3 months or something like that. But verify that with your employers. Like I said, like I agree with Kay that if you're a direct hire and you're employed by the hospital, once you get to the US, don't expect a welcome party.
You're on your
In
own.
the yeah, I remember one nurse telling me back then that as soon as he got in the airport, they just told him where to pick up the rental. The poor nurse doesn't even know how to drive. Welcome to the USA, guys. We don't have. You're gonna have to Uber, but they were given instruction of where to pick up the rental in the airport, but the nurse does not know how to drive.
How
So
to
those
drive.
things should have been communicated before coming over here.
I just wanna mention or Callum's comment. Yeah, that's
Okay.
true. When you are working under staffing agency, be very smart. Like outsmart them. Like what I did while working with them for 1.5 years, every payday, I always print out my A stub and my clock in time. And I really do an August because I want to finish early. Because
Right,
and
and I
then
can.
I have my contract here, I have my
Yeah,
A stub, and I have my time sheet. And I was like, okay, I'm only working for 2 months, but look, I've been working for almost 25 hours now. And then
yeah,
when I reach the maximum hours, I send them an email. listen, these are the hours that I work, and this is the contract. So I'm almost done for 1.5 years, and my contract was 3 years. It was not easy because we work
Did you
a
sleep
lot.
at all?
Yes, but I will be always be grateful and thankful for their assistance. But during our time, all remember we have no direct hire option. All I
Not a lot.
apply
Yep.
every weekend when I was still in the Philippines, all of them were staffing agency. And look, from my first agency, I went to recruitment agency first, then was staffing agency. So there are very limited option before, but now please nurses, uh, I advantage of DNP every Sunday. Learn from us, learn from our mistakes,
Right.
learn,
And
so
I wanna read that attorney Madge for those that are just listening because some of them are not looking at the video. But what
mhm,
Anna was saying was attorney Magin's comment where she said if you work for a staffing agency, it is essential that you track your hours and always check that you are being paid properly. And before you sign with staffing agency, find out if they take a percentage or service
mhm,
fee from any shift differentials. Don't let them surprise you with this. I agree with this. And even if you're not in a staffing agency, guys,
yep.
always check your paychecks.
It's your
I don't know.
money. You work hard for it.
Yeah, I could not emphasize that any further, but it is very important, vital to always check your paycheck. Remember this, all right? If they overpaid you, they will be on a call the next day telling you that they're gonna get that extra money out of your paycheck. If
Mhm.
they underpaid you, it could be 5 years before you even found
Yes,
out, and you cannot ask that money anymore. They're not gonna say that
exactly.
they underpaid you. And I mean, I work in direct facility in the hospital. I was underpaid multiple times because those bonuses that they promised me were not in. But they could fix it. They just don't want to. Why would they? Right?
Yeah.
If you're like any other nurses that are like, oh, I got this money. Oh, it's fine. No, look at the details. We always say check the fine print, all the details. File those paychecks and put it in your file. Review them all the time. Every time you get the money, in your paycheck, the first thing that you do is check your paycheck, your payroll, your
Get a
stuff. They send it to
highlighter. Highlight it.
uh, yeah, and check what I do before they cut off is I'm salaried now as an NP, so I don't have to monitor my time. Like they pay me 40 hours, I work 33 hours. But as a nurse, you got to be able to make sure you're billing them for every
Mhm.
minute, guys. If they ask you to stay because the director wants to talk to you for 30 minutes, do not clock out. You're paid
Yep.
because you're at
Mhm.
work. If they tell you, hey, can you, while you're at home, and they say,
We
hey,
have
can
a
you finish
meeting.
this education because it's
Yes.
due tomorrow? Don't do that at home, kids.
Yes.
Come back to work and sign in and do it at work because you're going to have to get paid for that and make sure that it's stamped properly in your payroll. But yep,
I-
very important to do that. And
If you
also, I
have a
want to add,
meeting,
yep,
if you
go.
have a meeting, you
Clock in.
yeah, you require to stay longer. Th-
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but this is not happening in Philippines. But when you come in US, every hour you're getting paid. Okay, that's
you're
why
right.
if you're planning to come for US, work for your American dream. I know I'm getting out of topic, but
Yeah,
please,
but
you know,
yeah. I
educate
also
yourself.
want to And I also want to add for agency, Kay and Anna, this is just for me. You can agree or not. But if I'm gonna have to work with an agency, like I said, it's all about who gives me the best benefits, right? If I'm the nurse
Yeah,
negotiating with, and I got 10 employers and 10 agencies working with me, now I have the power to choose, right?
yeah.
If
Mhm.
for whatever reason I have to work with a staffing agency, and we're all travel nurses here, so we've worked with staffing agency here
Yep.
in the U.S. But as an immigrant nurse, it's only Anna who did that. But if I'm gonna work as an immigrant nurse and I haven't been into the U.S. and there's so many gray areas that I don't know yet, and I don't have an option but to work with staffing agency, I will only work with a staffing agency with known track record, with a lot
Mhm.
of hospital connections in the
Mhm.
US. Because guess what? If your hospital staffing, if the staffing agency only has 5 networks in their company, the smaller the network, the less option for you. All right. Because with staffing agencies, if they have a lot of network and they give you one job offer and you're like, I don't think the rate is what I'm looking for,
Mm-hmm.
they can just get the job offer back, present you to another hospital. They already have your record. They're your employer, remember? And get you another job offer for a much higher rate. But the bigger the company is, the same as with direct hire. The bigger the company is, the more options you're going to get within the company. And if you have no choice and you have to work with a small company, just protect yourself. Also, I would ask them to put in the contract that if you're the one who didn't find me an employer, you're gonna have to release me. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to
Uh-oh.
release me, and I'm gonna not gonna have to pay for you. Right? Because some of them, no, we're not
Yeah.
gonna release you, but it's been 5 years. Let's all move on.
Let
Like
me go.
release me. You can't find an employer for me. You're not gonna find an employer now. I found an employer, so release me, and I'm not gonna pay for you because they bully nurses and say, you know, you're still gonna have to pay for me because you signed that contract. Well, if you didn't do anything, why are you asking for an invoice, right?
Yeah.
So something like that.
All right.
Okay.
Let's go with
I think
comments.
yes, comments.
Ronaline Garcia Galang. Ronaline mentioned that my friend applied direct placement, but that agency referred them to a staffing agency, and now they were laid off to the hospital that they are working to. Now the agency said they are looking for another placement. It's been almost 2 months and there's no new placement yet. What can they do? Ronaldin, this is
Oh.
not something new to me. I have heard this horror story.
Oh
And
my
the good
God,
thing is,
yes.
That's normal. Okay.
Spooky Halloween coming. There you go, your horror story. Woohoo! Okay, spooky. This is not something new. I have heard of this. Again, the trend right now is a lot of direct placement company doesn't really have a job when you get here. So the nurse arrived in the United States, and they didn't realize that that the employer or the recruiter that they were talking to sold them to a staffing company here in the United States. Okay, if this is actually smuggling, I don't know. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not in any of the legal system, or but it's like passing it to somebody without you understanding that what's going on. Okay, so there have been information that has come to us here, and the nurses, when you are in this situation, and you don't have a job like what they promised, go back to your contract. Okay, the first thing you have to do, if you still have, it sounds like fishy already, the first 3 weeks, and you already got your social security, you got your
Green
license
card.
activated, you are ready, good to go to
Mm-hmm.
work, and they cannot give you a job, and they're telling you, oh, still we don't have job for you. They said,
Mm-hmm.
well, look at back your contract, who's your employer? Okay, if you still have
Right.
no job within 1 month, that you are ready. Okay, this is the key word there. You are ready. You are ready to work means you have social security,
Mm-hmm.
your documents, and you are all clear. Your license is activated. You're good to work already.
You have green card.
And you're available to work too.
Yeah,
So,
Mm-hmm.
yep, which
yeah, you're
means
available to work.
it's their
Yeah,
fault, not yours.
yeah. So as soon as you don't get any response from your answer from your petitioner, I'd like you guys to consult a lawyer. Okay,
Right.
an immigration lawyer who understands as well as labor, who can, will be your best bet on this. Do not go to the immigration lawyer of your company.
Yeah.
Okay, do not.
No,
The
no, no, no.
person that you're
Not,
gonna go
do
is
not use the
the
lawyer
same
of your
immigration
employer.
lawyer
You
of
have
your
to
employer.
hire your own that will
A
protect your
private one.
interest
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
But before you do that, you want to make sure you have communication. That's what's done already. Visible
Right.
documentation in your email that you have communicated these concerns to your employer, to your petitioner, to your staffing company recruiter. So you have to have documentation that you have reached out to them, that I am ready to work, I'm available to
Right.
work. Where is the job that you promised me? If they said, hold on, because the employer is not here anymore, not available. This is always the story. When you arrive here, there's more
Right.
employer. Right? Yeah, right.
Right.
They could have
Right.
said that the day before your flight. But why
Right.
did they say that when you get here? Because when you get
Mm-hmm.
here, you are very vulnerable. You're an easy
Yep.
target because they
Easy.
want
Right.
to make sure that you have no other choice but to go to whatever they
Right.
want. Okay.
Right.
So when you
Right.
get here, I want you to guys to make a stop and then get your own lawyer, and the lawyer will go through your contract and see who is responsible for giving you a job. Really, if this company is telling you, oh, we're going to go to a different company and you're going to sign a new contract, don't sign that.
Mhm.
Don't until you talk with your own lawyer, please. Again, this is
Right.
a problem. You've been here for almost 2 months, and the job that they promised, we've heard of this, and then the nurses were told, if you want and if you cannot wait anymore, you pay that $30,000 and we terminate you.
Yep.
You terminate.
And
So don't do that.
can, yeah, can I
Yeah.
add something? If you are terminated by your employer, you are in the US, you are paying for it, you are going to get unemployment, you have to file it, your agency will pay for it. So what will I do is file for unemployment first, find a lawyer like Majen's LinkedIn. You can message her. she's online right now. But I'll find a lawyer to send a letter to my company. I'll give them about a week or two. And
Mhm.
if they don't respond to me and they don't find me a job, and there's not a concrete plan of what's gonna happen to me, I'm gonna find a lawyer. But honestly, without a lawyer, I'll negotiate first and say, if you are going to pay me the same amount of money while you're looking for an employer, because you're my employer, I'm technically available and have all the requirements. So you should be paying me money, right? Because it's not my fault that I got terminated or the hospital rescinded the
Mhm.
offer in the middle of it and said, you know what, you're not what we're looking for, and we're gonna look for someone else because it's at will, probably. That's why.
Mhm.
And if not, then I'm gonna solicit a lawyer. But honestly, guys, this is also why in the previous talk shows that we did or podcast, we said go for an EB3 visa. I'll tell you right now, on the second week, I'll be driving to the next hospital beside the hospital I'm working
Yep.
at and be applying. I'm not gonna wait for my agency, because if I'm gonna wait for them, my 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 whole life is gonna be affected. Who pays my rent? Who pays my car? Who pays
Mhm.
my groceries? Who's gonna feed me? Right? So you know what? I'm gonna take them to small court if I have to, but I gotta work. That's the truth. So please advocate for yourselves. Nurses, we're doing so much already for our patients, for our community. We're devoting so much of our lives to make our patients' lives better. Please do not let these vultures to feed on you. All right. And again, agencies and recruiters are not inherently evil, right? Like my recruiters help me, and I'm happy that they did what they have to do so I can get situated there. But there are still bad apples, and why this is
Yep.
why we're doing the DNP Unlocked, because we're gonna talk about the uncomfortable things that people don't want to talk about. But we're gonna let you know some agencies. There is one comment here by Carlene. She said, my opinion as a hired employee, you need to have dignity of work. But a staffing agency under international labor law, an employment agency is an entity that charges a fee for placement of a candidate to be employed with a third party like a hospital. Hence, they by design cannot guarantee or be beholden by employment laws. That is the truth. Businesses are going to protect their businesses, all right? They're not going to protect you. So, like, I think I've heard this from Kay multiple times. Treat your profession as your business. If they're protecting their business, you protect yours too. All
Yep.
right. If the contracts, like what we said in the past, if the employers have so much in the contract that protects them and does not have anything to protect you, your
Run.
interests, I would get away from that contract. That's what I
Run.
call yeah, it's like a toxic relationship where it's only protecting you. There's not, it's a contract should be between the two of us. There should be an offer to protect me, which means if you can't find me an employer in a month, you're gonna be leaving the contract without asking me for a fee, and I can work anywhere, right? Something like that. But if it's only protecting you, then for me that's a toxic relationship. We need to move on and break away from that relationship, right? But it's a profession. So treat your profession with dignity, treat yourself with dignity. Nurses, you have so much negotiating power. You are needed. There's so much shortage in the US. Let me tell you this, if one employer fires you, the other employer would be hurrying up to hire you right away because they need you. they need nurses at bedside.
Dr. Nurse Paul and Nurse A, I just wanna read this from Romeo Guevara. Although granted an immigrant visa by staffing agency, common question is, can they work in another facility? I just want to emphasize this. So remember last week we spoke about contract and job offer. And in the contract there are terms. And in my contract before, the term is one of the, like, I am not allowed to work in another facility while I'm working with the staffing agency. But like also last week, we only work 3 days or 3 nights in a week. And what are we going to do with the remaining 4? And especially if you have bills to pay and you're starting your whole new life in the US and you're sending money in the Philippines, right? So, or wherever you are. In my contract in Spain, I am not allowed to work in another facility, but what I did was after I worked for 6 months without calling out, without being late, and I spoke to my staffing agency. I said, listen, I've been working professionally, diligently, but my pay is not enough. You know, they're getting cut from it.
Of course.
So I spoke to them, and I'm a breadwinner. I have a family. I have a parent back home. I told them everything, all in pay. And I work in another facility, and they saw my record. You know, like you said, okay, it's all about negotiation. So even if you sign the contract already, it doesn't hurt to ask. Just ask them, hey,
Right.
can I work in another facility? The least thing they can say is no. But like, hey, and also you have green card, you have social security, and you're ready to work. So why not? So my answer will be, it depends on the facility, even if you have a contract about that. But that's what I did 8 years ago with my staffing agency. I spoke to them, I negotiated with them, and no, I even finished my contract earlier with stated years and hours.
Right. I think it's a great area, Kay, and to to tell nurses to not work anywhere else.
Yeah.
For me, as long as I'm giving you my full time hours and
Yeah.
it's not being affected, and I'm not calling off a lot from my schedule because I'm working somewhere else, I don't think that should matter. In the sense that, I mean, you can consult your lawyer, and I don't know legal nuances here, but the point is, what I do on my free time is none of my employer's business. You know what I mean? Because that's my free time. As long as I deliver to them what they want, 36 hours, 40 hours. If they schedule me Monday to Wednesday, right? And I'm scheduled Monday to Wednesday, and I pick up my extra shift on a Thursday in my PRN job, right? It's another hospital. I don't think that should matter because what I do on my free time is not theirs, it's mine. So if I want to work in another hospital, I think it should be fine. Okay, I'm talking about EB3 visas, okay? Immigrant green card holders, not for H1B because they can take out your visa, guys. That's illegal. All right. I don't think that matters. But if this is what happens, and this is what this is what actually happened to me on my second year here in the U.S. The supervisor, because he was so what you call that, he didn't like it that me and my other friends started picking up shifts in another hospital. He wants to control our time. So he'd schedule me Monday to Wednesday. That's we have a pattern, right? We call it block. So this week you're Monday to Wednesday, and then next week you're Thursday to Saturday, and then Monday to Wednesday again. So you can follow the block all throughout the year, and you can predict your schedule. He'd play around the schedule to where on Tuesday he's gonna move by Wednesday to Friday to mess up my schedule because he knows that Friday I'm working in another hospital because the other supervisor of the hospital is a friend. It's a small town, guys. So everybody knows everybody. And in the ER world, we kind of like we say we know everybody in the ER.
Are they Filipino?
No, they're not. They're not. But it's because I recruited my friends to the other hospital because they were short, and I like how they do it there, but not to work there full time. So I'm only picking like one shift every 2 weeks or something. To cut it short, it was messing my schedule intentionally. So what I did, I sit with him and I said, "You cannot change my schedule less than 24 hours and expect me to be there because I have life outside work. And they said, no, oh no, you're just working in another hospital. I was like, sir, what I do outside my working hours is none of your business. If I want to go on a trip, if I want to be with my family, if I want to go study or want to pick up a shift in another hospital, I don't think that should matter. But so we didn't budge. I talked to my director, and of course, my director liked me because I'm a preceptor, I'm charged. In short, we were able to negotiate that to where there shouldn't be changes in schedule less than 24 hours, right? Because that's like, what if I have a plan? What if I'm going to the Philippines to visit my mom? What if my mom is sick, right? So that's what I told them, and they understood the situation. But again, like Anna said, clarify that with your employer because sometimes they can put something in your contract, and because you don't like to read, right? You just look at the rate, and oh, it's America. I'm an
Yes,
assignment.
dollar.
Explicitly said you cannot work anywhere else, guys. You're doomed. When you sign that paper, you have expressly agreed to every single letter, dots, whatever words, sentences are in there. So unfortunately, it will go against you because you signed it. All right. So be your own advocate.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the sad thing is because we are foreign graduates and we don't know the legal system or legal jargons in United States, this is often used. Contracts are often used by exploitive employers to re-abuse us. Okay,
Right.
unfortunately, that is the sad part, and sometimes you just sign. Guys, this is not your app store, okay? That you just scroll everything and press agree, okay? It's not like
No.
that. This is not like your
Accept
Spotify
terms and
and
conditions.
then just scroll and accept. This is not
Right.
your usual consumer because usual consumer is really protected by the Consumer Bureau, okay? So a lot of people who are just using app stores or Facebook or social media, you can just scroll and then click accept. That's fine because majority of this are used by general population. But contracts should never be scroll and accept.
Yeah.
What you're gonna do is you're gonna highlight every single line that you don't understand
Yeah.
100%. Okay, even if you're not
Right.
sure, it's considered you don't understand if you're not sure. If you
Mhm.
don't
Right.
understand it 100%, the other option there is you don't understand. Either you do or
Right.
you don't. Okay, so if you don't
Eh,
understand it 100%, highlight it. It will only take you $150 to $300 to consult a
a
lawyer to
lawyer.
review it,
Yeah.
yeah, and discuss it with you. What the lawyers will do is they're gonna read that line to line and explain to you. And
Yeah.
if you don't understand, then you will have to tell them, can you please explain this in a more easy way that a layman's term can understand? Because
Right.
legal jargons are not easy to understand. So we're gonna go with the comments and questions. We have a few more minutes. Let me
Do
go
we?
over. I
Do we
know we
have?
have forever. I know.
We
Okay,
always
so
every
let's see.
overtime every
one hour is not ever enough.
Okay, we didn't discuss this. Antoinette Penales. What if the first offer was provisional, especially the rate? And it says it will go up while waiting for deployment. Can we put that? Okay, there you go. What if the first offer was provisional, especially the rate, and it say will go up while waiting for the deployment, and eventually it will still increase because of continuous experience. So, Antoinette, if you read the contract, some contracts will say this offer or this contract is conditional, or this is, like you said, provision only if you fulfill all your obligations. Okay, so it will tell in the contract or those offer that you will have to finish your English exam, your immigration visa. So those are called conditional offers, conditional contract. And then when you fulfill all of those, they will make you sign another one. But the one that you're gonna sign will still be actually the same or higher pay. Okay, they cannot give you
Right.
lower pay. They cannot.
No.
Okay. There are also contracts that they were going to say that your salary will be based on prevailing wage. If you see
Yes.
that word, prevailing wage, on the location of where you're going to be working, so what the next step is, get a copy of your ETA 9089. Okay, again, ETA 9089 is the form that you file in the immigration. If your contract doesn't say any salary there, your best bet will go check your ETA 9089 and you will see a rate there, okay? Because that's where they will promise you to, I mean, it will show the salary that the company is telling the immigration that's the amount of money that you will be getting paid, but no less than that should be. No less than what is in your ETA 9089. It can go up, yes, but never going down. Okay, and some provisions and those contract may be changed, maybe little. Okay, maybe the start date be changed, because when you signed 2 years ago, they don't know when you're going to start, so they just estimated 2 years. That's also
Right.
possible. But it shouldn't be a major change. A major change is like saying I'm getting 30, but you told me in my contract was 40. Or you told me in my contract it says I'm working in Texas, but then you send me to Illinois. Okay, so those are big changes. If your contract doesn't say that you're allowed to change location, then why are you being changed? So any change of contract, is review it. Don't sign it. Again, don't scroll and click agree. This is not your social media use, okay? Morados Sherwin, I don't know why you put their element staffing registry. Are you trying to promote your company? Because the first question I will say is, are you POEA accredited, right? What do you call this one? Next, other questions that we need to flash. Can you check? Romeo?
Do you have here from is that from Sedbury? How about this? Do you advise to undergo residency program with no experience? Okay, I'll be very clear with my stand here. Do not go to the US without experience. Period.
Yep. Me too.
You're more likely the nurses that were human trafficked here, manipulated, bullied, and honestly, you're already vulnerable as an immigrant. You're making yourself even more vulnerable. You're taking on so much risk without an experience. All right, the U.S. is good for nurses that need residency in terms of nursing residency program for new nurses. But imagine having to pick up all your stuff, packing your bags, and moving to a new country in a new city with different culture, and you don't know what's going on with the world, and you're still trying to establish yourself, and now you have to learn the ropes of being a nurse here. I don't advise to do that. Please come to the US with an experience. And honestly, they expect nurses here that are immigrant nurses to be experienced because of what our predecessors have they paved the way. If you are coming over here without experience, that's totally fine. You can wing it. Missing residency programs are good for you, but the agencies are gonna be picking on you because they can lower your rate. They can say, you know what, you need us because we're the only agency that can hire you without experience. So here, let me put you to the nursing facility that nobody wants to go to because rates are so low. But because nobody wants to go there, they are going to pay me $50,000 because I need to find a nurse who can go there. You know what? You don't have experience and you're at the bottom of the food chain. I'm sorry to say that word, but that's the truth. We're gonna bring you to that agency, and good luck to you. We're gonna pray for you while you're there. We're gonna give you free what's that employee assistance program where you get free counseling once a month because you're gonna have a mental health breakdown. But guys, know honestly, nurses who are subjected to very very grave conditions are the nurses that were the most vulnerable, and a lot of them don't have experience coming to the U.S.
And remember, food is very common in US. So if you don't have any experience and we have no malpractice insurance, so double times.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually been told about this. A lot of people say, okay, because the salary is not really livable if you work in the hospital, so we choose BPO. We don't have experiences. I actually, they said we need, we need money.
Yeah.
So then, when I actually created a table, I put it in the Quora. I created a table and I compared in a long-term 5-year picture.
Mm-hmm.
If you are just counting your salary for 2 years as a BPO versus getting experience in the hospital, but when you land here in the US, the salary is very low because you're going to be on those lowest paying job. If you look at the 5-year salary spectrum, your salary actually is less rather than a person who would take 1 year experience in hospital with a low pay, but when they arrive here in the US, their salary is like almost double of those
Mm-hmm.
people who arrive without experience. If you look at that 5-year picture, if you run that number, you're gonna still be financially ahead after 5 years, even if you take that low paying job in the hospital. Okay, even if, okay, and then when you're in that hospital, apply for job to the US. That's what I did when I was in the when I was in the Philippines. Actually, I was working on my 3rd month in the hospital. It was a tertiary. We have operating room, trauma. On my 3rd month of being hired as a hospital employee experience, I was offered a hospital job in the US because of that. They will start as long as you stay with that. And again, this is your license when you get here. So I do recommend you getting experience like Paul, but I know some circumstances you will choose not to. So if you choose not to, like Paul said, you know the risks. Okay.
Yeah,
And I
you took
don't
that risk.
recommend, yeah. And one of the risks there is if you're your family with kids, if you go with those horrible working conditions or staffing company that you remember you're at will contract, which means they can terminate you anytime.
Right, right.
Imagine if you rented an apartment already in the US, it's a 1 year lease, usually
Yeah,
1 year
1 year
lease.
lease. You cannot break away the lease
Yeah. Yep.
because if you break away the lease, you're gonna pay, I think, 4 to 6 months worth,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
they're gonna blacklist you to where you cannot rent anymore anywhere in the U.S.
Yeah.
because it's a national database. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a credit report.
Yep, and we're talking
So
about the 2 months that you're gonna throw money from those lease. Let's say your agency or your employer said, "Oh, after 2 months working, we're gonna transfer you to a different location," right?
right,
To a different because again you are subject. You're very prone to those. What will happen to that lease? First, you brought your family and your kids. What if your kids are in the school? Are you gonna pull them out in the middle of the year? What? And then you're gonna
hmm
break that contract in the apartment complex. Like Paul said, you're gonna have to pay like 2 to 5 months, or depending on the
state
agreement of that,
laws.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, on that apartment. So it can cost you like probably $5,000 that will go to the garbage. Okay, and moving is very expensive in the
Oh
US.
It
yeah.
is. That
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
truth.
yeah. Every time you
It's
move,
not enough fun.
yeah, expect those five
Fun.
thousand dollars. Yeah,
In the
but
Philippines, you can just call your friends and
Neighbor.
community. It's because in Philippines there's bayanihan. It's
yeah, yeah,
community approach
yeah,
where I'll,
yeah,
I'll I'll just cook pancit for you, but can you please help me? No, guys, here in the
Not
U.S.,
in here.
there's no free lunch. Everything is
yeah,
paid for. Movers are
By hour.
expensive. Moving trucks
yeah,
are expensive. So with me, I was like, I have to pay movers because I'd rather work and get paid 100 an hour as a travel nurse, so I can pay the movers versus me packing all of these things
yeah,
and not get
yeah,
money because I can't work. Something like that. It's just so
Wait,
hard. It is very
yeah.
expensive.
I'm
Yep.
moving
And
in
Anna is
two
in the
days.
process of moving.
I'm moving in 2 days.
Yeah,
And the apartment we're in the house gonna be but it's only 10 minutes away. And you know how much will I pay for it? Almost 1,000.
Wow, that's
mhm,
crazy.
So
That's
I
a
was like,
lot.
okay, I'm going packing. All we're gonna do is flip it, put it in the truck, and bring it down, and
yeah,
1,000.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I imagine I moved 14 times in 17 years.
Oh yeah, I don't know how you
Wow.
do that, okay?
I,
You're the boss.
I think I moved 5 times, but not
Yeah.
14 times. That's a lot.
Yeah, if you see that, if you go Google right now and right there, what's the most stressful part of the person's life? It's number 1. They're moving. Imagine I
Yeah.
stressed myself 14 times. So any
Right, right.
stressful life for me is just like, yeah, that's nothing.
I've been through that. I've been through worse.
All right. Okay. Next question here. Let me see here. Romeo de Vera says, can the agency change the contract sign in the Philippines and have a new contract on arrival to US? Can we post that? Yeah. Have you heard of that? Changing contracts, Paul and
Yeah,
Yeah,
Anna?
yeah, a
Yeah.
you heard that
lot.
many times.
Yep, and we always say, please, please, don't let them do that.
Yeah, right? Why can't they just give it the day before of your arrival, right? Why they
Yeah,
have to
it
wait
has
until
to be.
you get here?
Yeah,
Yeah, because you're alone, But,
yeah.
not all people are bad. Not all employers are bad. This is my
Mhm.
take here. So I asked the Office of Migrant Worker from the Philippines, can employers change their contracts? It said the answer is yes. Okay, as long as it's not a big change, like I mentioned to you. It's not a
Right.
big change. Yeah, right. So if your rate is changing
I hope it's a
higher,
better rate.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. That's fine because it adjusted to the prevailing wage.
Yeah.
If your location is changed, when they promise you in the Philippines you're going to work in Texas, but they send you to Illinois, what does the contract say? Does the contract say we can change you to different location? If that says in your contract, then yes. So they say, oh, Miss K, they promised me that they're going to put me in Texas. What did your contract say? And I look at the contract, it says there, you can be changed anywhere. Okay. One particular company, Ohio based company, I think Paul knows this company very well.
Yes.
And, and, everybody's saying, but okay, they promised me they're going to put me in Florida. When I arrived, they gave me Florida. That is good. But what is your contract say? Well, yeah, our contract is can be changed anywhere. So again, if it's a very big change, Romeo, no. According to Office of Migrant Worker, if it makes a very big difference, so again, big is very subjective. So I will let the nurse use their critical thinking. What is that
Yeah.
big change? Okay. If you're not
Yeah.
very sure and you're coming from the Philippines, I recommend you talking with the Office of Migrant Worker. Labor attaché can help you navigate those both contracts. Before you sign, call some lawyer to or the Office of Migrant Worker if you're from Philippines.
Right.
If you're not from Philippines, get a lawyer, okay, to review it
In
with
the
you.
US. Yeah. Yeah.
In the US, correct, yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. All right. So
Right.
next
Right.
question. Can you take that, Anna?
I just want to read Dr. Ferdinand Glabang Flores about the leave emphasize to nurses that once they started their work, it doesn't mean that they are already permanently hired. They are given 90 days. After this disciplinary period, once they perform very well in the unit, then the preceptor will recommend that the nurse is good or good. Based on my experience with my previous hospital, there are some nurses who were terminated because of poor performance during orientation. So the key here is hospital experience is very important in applying in a job. I think that's what Dr. NursePaul said earlier. It's a must-have to have an experience before you go in the US. Because we have remember we have a orientation period, and we're going to evaluate you, and we're going to let you know if you can stay or we're going to let you go. So as a staffing agency, what I experienced, I had a orientation aides and they evaluated me. And there's one Korean nurse who arrived same time with me, and she had a problem with communication in English part, so they let her go. So just a reminder, it's not something with experience, but it's possible that even if you are hired by a staffing agency, I don't know what your experience all about the evaluation, but she was sent home. So just take note of
Yeah.
that, nurses.
I mean, they terminate nurses even if they're not immigrants. Like, you know how ER is crazy and fast paced. We have a thing here in the ER where we are very upfront in the ER. If we say that way, we don't sugarcoat. We tell nurses right away, I don't think you're cut out for the ER, period. No explanation.
Oh,
It's just,
hurt.
try TACU, or maybe try let's
Try
take you to the
OR, right,
medical
Kate?
floor. They need more nurses because the prioritization strategies are not there yet, and ER is different. You gotta have your head in the game all the time, kind of that, because there could be five things happening at the same time. So we're upfront in the ER. And I mean, if they terminate nurses that are already educated here, and some of them have experiences, on the spot within the 19-day period, what do you think will happen to immigrant nurses? Of course, they
Yes.
would get that and more, because you're
Mm-hmm.
not only adjusting to the new place, you're also adjusting, or new workplace, but you're also adjusting to the new city, new country, new everything. So it's very stressful. Trust me, guys. We've heard reports of nurses going into depression within the first 6 months to 1 year of coming here to the US, because it's not what I expected it to be. It's all about resilience. It's all about preparing yourself for these unexpected events. It's all about telling yourself that you're gonna go through challenges in the first year, because you're adjusting. It's also about researching ahead of time what U.S. Work is, what are the expectations for your unit for this type of job in the US, because it's different here. When I teach NCLEX, it's different with when I teach nurse from different parts of the country. They say, oh, this is how we do it in our country. Oh, this is how we do it in our country. I was like, well, that's not how we do it here in the US. We're very aggressive here. Medicine here is aggressive. We have nurse driven protocols. We have national patient safety goals. We have core measure we need to worry about, so many things to worry about. So they're really gonna terminate you if you are not cut out for it. And most of the states are at will, which means they can just literally walk up to you today and say, "Give us your badge. You're done.
Going home.
You're done for the day. You're going home. You cannot come back tomorrow." And unfortunately, that happens more often than not.
Yep, we have actually a nurse here in the US, and she was just terminated. And when she was asking what's the reason for my termination, they said, "Oh, you broke the HIPAA law, HIPAA violation." And then when she said,
Mm.
"What HIPAA violation did I break? Can I have a meeting about this? Because I did not know that I broke any. There was no discussion that was sent to me, or what are you telling me that you're accusing me of HIPAA violation?" So the hospital, I mean, the facility is not, it's in the state that is at will, that the hospital, that the facility or the employer does not need to explain to you why are they
Yeah,
firing
because
you.
it's at
Okay,
will.
so
Yeah,
it's
that is
called
true.
at will without exemptions. Okay, so she is in a state where it's an at will, no exemption, which means the hospital or the employer does not need to discuss to you why you're terminated. And guess what? She was under staffing company who provided so many perks. Okay, so the staffing
They bill
company
her.
paid for IELTS review, paid for NCLEX,
Oh my
paid for
goodness. Here's one of those things.
paid for all the concierge service, free airfare coming to the United
It's
States,
not
three
free.
months. Yeah. Now what is happening? They said you're terminated. You are going to
Invoice.
paid the liquidated damages.
Yeah.
Now,
Mhm.
those perks that you are receiving on those contracts are not free if you are
Right.
terminated. Okay?
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
hospital does not need to be discussing that unless the hospital or the employer is violating labor laws. I would definitely start with getting a labor lawyer to look into your
Right.
case if you were terminated against labor laws, okay,
Right.
or discrimination, retaliation. They cannot fire you on those aspects. So there is an organization in the United States called EEOC that is under the Department of Labor, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. You please consult if you feel like you were terminated by your employer,
For
um,
discrimination.
for discrimination or for anything that is against the law that you are being terminated. Okay, but again, you have to remember those at will contracts comes also with some risks. Okay, so please
Right.
look
And
into that.
and also remember that all the free stuff, there's no free lunch in the US. They're not free. They're free, or they're called
Yeah.
benefits. They're free to you, contingent to you completing the contract. So if it goes sideways and you got terminated by the recruiting agents, this is what I'm telling you, the more organizations you're working with, the more it gets complicated, right? Because now you're getting billed by 2 or 3 facilities or
Yeah.
organizations. But yeah, you're gonna get an invoice, guys, and
Yeah.
that
And they're not
invoice,
cheap.
guys,
Not cheap. That can
I would
amount to
not want to see that
40,000.
invoice. Yeah,
Yeah, it
which
can
means
be
they're
40.
gonna ask you for payment. So
Yeah.
be on top of things, guys. Protect yourself. When you're here to work, you are here to work. Be upfront to your employers and your preceptors to say, hey, look, I have 10 years experience as a nurse, but I haven't been in the bedside for the last 5 years. So if you can just walk me through, don't fake it till you make it. That's the worst
Yep.
mistake that you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have here in the US. If there's anything that I've seen in my unit in the ER, that nurses are fired within the first 90 days, and the horrible types of firing that's so traumatizing for everybody, because you're working with this person, the next day they're taking out his badge, something like that. Like, there no, like I said, it's at will, right? But these are the nurses that are faking till they made it, like, they're not upfront with their history. Like, yes, I'm an ER nurse, but that was 10 years ago, right? The last
Mhm.
3 years I was a prison nurse, something like that. Just be upfront, right? Like, tell them that you probably were a nurse before, but not recently, so you probably need more training. They would appreciate you better than setting expectations for yourselves, and you can't perform your functions. All right. So especially true for nurses that have very, very little experience, that could be a problem. Like I said, the less experience that you have, the farthest away you are from bedside before you come here to the US, the more risk you are taking for yourself. So if you're really going for it, make sure that you know these risks and you are prepared if these risks were to happen. In investment, we call it the exit strategy. You always have to have an exit strategy.
Yeah, a lot of people say, well, okay, I don't have land to quit my job. I'm gonna finish it. Hey, the same thing for me, right? Nobody
Right.
wants, nobody's committing immigration fraud here. Well, as far as I know, who come to me, everybody wants to finish 3 years contract or 2 years contract. Okay, this is where the problem arises. Emergency. How about when you get into an accident? How 100 are you 100% sure you're not gonna get sick? You're not gonna get into accident. We have nurses here who arrived that
Right.
got actually they don't know how to drive in the United States, got into car accident, needed
Oh my
surgery,
goodness.
and they cannot perform the job. They were assigned in skilled nursing facilities that needs to carry patients. Okay, now after the accident, after being in the United States of 6 months, they got into an accident. They cannot lift patient anymore.
Oh
Okay,
my goodness.
but they have medical note, 2 medical notes saying they cannot lift patients.
Right.
Okay, so what happened to the nurses? I mean, for the specific nurse, the nurse, well, we cannot give you a job. You cannot,
All right.
you have to terminate your contract. Okay, you cannot fulfill your job, and it says on the contract that if you cannot fulfill it, then you will have to terminate it. And termination comes with, again, liquidated damage in her contract.
Right. Right. Wow.
Imagine if you already cannot work as a nurse and you still have to be slapped by those expensive fees. So please, even though you have intention to finish your contract for 3 years, that's not the question. The question is, what if you get into an accident? A lot of people come here, no driving history. They drive in highway and boom, they got into an
Oh
accident.
my God. They
Okay.
better not drive in Texas. 100 miles per hour.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So those are the things that you will have to consider. We're not here telling you read your termination clause because you're going to terminate. We're not emphasizing or promoting to terminate your contract. We're promoting you understanding what if accidents happen? What if
Right.
you have a child and you need to take care of that child because the child got sick
All right.
and you cannot
Mhm.
work? What will happen? So those are the things that you will have to ask. But yeah, and we'll go. Did you answer this question, Rizalin? Do you advise to just get agreed with EB1? visa rather than getting EB3 since it's the fastest way to go to the
Oh,
US,
oh,
especially.
oh. I'm sorry. I mean, if you're an EB1, you better have invented a new medicine. You better have invented a cure for cancer. You better have discovered a new planet. That's what EB1 is about. If you're a nurse working at the bedside, you better have discovered a new disease that's so novel that's now has not been discovered before. That's EB1, guys. So it's very,
Maybe
very
H1.
narrow criteria. Exceptional ability.
Yeah,
That's
Risa, do you
EB1.
mean H1B or EB1?
Might be H1.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, because H1 is different than EB1. Yeah, or
I
I
think she
mean,
can watch our previous shows.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
For
Oh, she said, I mean H1B. H1.
okay.
H.
That sounds like
Yeah,
EB1. Wow, that's exceptional
okay.
ability. I don't
Yeah.
think nurses can qualify for
Like, I'm like, I didn't get my coffee. My coffee. I feel like, B1. Are you there? B2. You're banana
that.
pajamas.
So many legal jargons and immigration jargons. All right,
And we are
that's really
nurses.
Yeah.
yeah.
So we have
But
one more message here. Life is bittersweet. I'm already here in the US, but currently not working. I do have 1 year experience in OR, but not confident enough to practice here because of the different ORs and culture. What will you advise? OR nurse. Hey, Anna, OR nurse.
I went back to a ambulatory surgery center. I started nice and slow and
actually,
steady.
yeah,
Because
right, and
I don't wanna be overwhelmed. So that's why I
right.
started ambulatory surgery center for 1 year. And then I always go to hiring events in New York City.
Mhm.
You know how NYU, how Northwell, those are big companies in our hospital in New York, and Northwell they will always have a hiring event. And I just listen, and if they call me back, I apply. If they're not, just for the sake of experience. And also
Right.
I joined in AOR and a group for OR nurses. They helped me a lot. There are a lot of resources. I also is an
Right.
OR nurse.
Yeah, I'm an OR nurse, and I'm gonna tell you, I've been traveling nurse, and I'm gonna tell you, not every day that I sign up a job every 3 months, I'm not confident.
Right.
Exactly.
You will
Mhm.
never be
You,
confident at
right.
all starting in a new
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
place, but you can be picky. So let's say your experience is level 1 trauma in the
Mm-hmm.
Philippines. When you get here, there's so many things to study. So I recommend you starting with a small community hospital with
Yeah.
fewer operating rooms, fewer surgeries, fewer things to remember and memorize. So to give you time to adjust to the culture or the healthcare system of United States. But they're pretty much the same because Philippines also
Yeah.
follow AORN standards, AORN
Mm-hmm.
guidelines.
Right.
Um, but I don't recommend you jumping into a 90 operating room
Yeah.
hospital. All
No.
right.
Oh my God, yes, that's
Yeah,
a
That's what
huge
I
one.
did. Hey, ambulatory surgery, then small
yeah,
community hospital, the level 1 trauma hospital, and
Yeah.
then I got bored.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, if you have experience working in UK or I think UAE, probably close. But
Yeah.
don't gun for level 1 right away. I mean, I worked ER. I started
yeah,
with level 4 because slow and steady always
Mm-hmm.
win.
yeah,
Imagine if I had to do level 1 right away and I got terminated. Like
yeah,
level 1 trauma facilities are very, very busy trauma
Yep.
centers. Level 1 and level 2. The only difference between level 1 and 2 is in one they have academic facility, which is a school. But I would avoid that for a minute.
yeah,
Like get acquainted with. I actually love small towns because there's more support, there's
Yeah,
more
that's what I noticed too.
family
Mm-hmm.
oriented, kind of like that. They take you because they know that they rarely get nurses. No, everybody wants to move to cities. With small town, they treat you as their own, like you're part of the community, and they get you like to learn the ropes as long as you have really nice workplace. Some workplaces are
yeah,
not nice as well, but like I said,
yeah.
if you go straight for the you go straight for big organizations that are level 1 and you've not been in the bedside for a bit, or your experience is totally different, you know the risk you're taking as well.
All right. Okay,
That's
so
it.
thank you everyone.
Whew,
You
that was a
know,
long one.
yeah,
I
I
still
know.
have a
That
class.
was staffing versus direct. Let's wrap up what are the key takeaways
Key
from this?
takeaways.
Yeah, key takeaways, Paul, Dr.
I'll
Nurse
start
Paul.
with staffing agency because this is one of the most choices the nurses. Like all nurses said, there are good apples and there are bad apples. It depends how it's your tolerance, right? Okay, so research is the P, not PM, not private messages. What's in DNP every Sunday is another P. Because we're gonna learn a lot from us. I mean, we cannot emphasize enough. We've been sharing our experiences with you guys. We're not sugarcoating. It's not always a blessing. There are also some curse. So please do your homework. A staffing agency helped me. It helped me achieve my goals. But nowadays we have other options. Shop around, do not be in a hurry, do not be like, yay, US, New York, California, yes, dollar sign. It's not all about that. I mean, your choice of workplace and contract will either make you or break you, especially when you have a family. So create the life that you want by educating yourself. Thank you everyone for always watching every Sunday, 8 a.m.
And for me, the key takeaway is I always say this, I'm big with goals and plans. Always have plan A, B, and C. Do not settle for one employer, for one job offer. Get at least three to compare. Do not settle for one city. Get at least three cities on your choices. Do not settle for one unit. Get at least three units that you can work at depending on your experience. But the point is, always have other plans because it can go sideways. Your employer can abandon you. What's next? You get here to the US, you got terminated after 30 days. What's next? You got into a hospital, they did not terminate you, but it's such a toxic environment where your mental health is getting affected. What's next? You got into a very beautiful hospital and loved your job, and suddenly your kid got sick. What's next? Always have plan A, plan B, plan C for everything. Life is unpredictable. If there's anything that I've learned in the ER, life is not guaranteed. So make sure that whatever you're doing today is the most that you can do for today. So that way there's no regrets. That also includes you choosing your job and you moving to the US in a job that you really like, in a city that you really like, in a community that you really like.
Yeah, for me, the replacement staffing company, what really matters is, understanding who your employer is, doing a background check on your employer, maybe direct placement, a direct employer, or staff agency. It doesn't matter. And also, this is not to promote specific companies, but I'm saying that there is a thing called Code of Ethics for Recruitment that was done by CGFNS. Okay, so there are certified recruiters for that. So CGFNS created that list to make sure that those agencies follow Code of Ethics of International Recruitment. Okay, but are they all problem free? Answer is, I've worked with 40 plus companies. Nobody is perfect. Okay, not a single one of them. There can be one that works best on my interest, but there will always be problems. But the question is, the indicator of a good company is the one who can solve your problem or address your concerns professionally and in a timely manner. If you raise concerns with either direct employment or staffing company and they're addressing it properly on timely basis, there's no oh, call me, let's keep it secret. No. They are addressing it properly on emails. They're not scared to hide things. Then that is a good company. You cannot say I'm a very good surgeon, but if crisis comes, I don't know how to operate, right? That's a bad surgeon. A good surgeon is not indicative that all simple appendectomy cases are successful. A good surgeon will be identified by if it's a critical, complicated appendectomy, can you still do that? If the answer is yes, then yes, a great company is somebody who will address problem, not a company who is perfect. Okay, no, there's no such thing as perfect. So if you have questions, this company should be able to address your questions properly and should address issues properly. Okay, maybe staffing or direct. Right?
That's it. Thank you guys for joining us today. And let's see your calendar for next for November. So next week, guys, we don't have a show, but we are going to replay our pilot episode. For those who were not able to join our pilot episode, we're gonna show that next week. All of us are gonna be on break next Sunday, but please feel free to join us for our
Mhm.
live pilot episode replay on October 29th. And then we will come back on November. So for November, guys, we're gonna have all these shows: insurance
Wow,
basics,
great
insurance
topic.
red flags. Yep, tax basics and tax strategies. So it's all about finances and protecting your finances. We're
All
not gonna
about the
talk about
money, money.
IUL. Alrighty, and we hope to see you guys every Sunday, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you guys. Welcome, and thank you for joining the DNP Unlocked, an immigrant talk show. Bye.
Bye,
Bye
everyone. See
bye.
ya.